Hey everybody, welcome back to Armchair Quarterbacks Mile High Edition. My name is Michael Worth. This week we got a special guest host with us.
My name's Brian Worth.
And then today, don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you follow us till the end. And we got a great episode coming up. So first off, we're going to talk some playoff hockey. We got a 4-0 sweep of the St. Louis Blues. And Brian, what'd you think of the series how do you think the Avalanche look?
They looked really good. I mean, the entire time they were pretty much on attack. It wasn't really even a series. There were only a couple points where it looked like it was even going to be a good game. They pretty much dominated from start to finish of the entire series. So they're playing well
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely. So it was 4-1-6-3, 5-1-5-2. Never really close. There
I
was
mean,
a couple times in the first game that they tried to get real physical and get into our heads, but it didn't really work too well. Um, so we were on to the next one. We got a long break. What stood out most to you with the play?
having McKinnon back really helped them. I mean, they
Absolutely.
were still a good team without him, but just having him back on the ice, having somebody that's that dynamic, it just put them to another level.
Yeah, absolutely. So last week I was talking about if Nathan McKinnon has a weakness, it's his inability to look to score. But that was not the case this series, as he had something like six goals, six
Yeah,
goals
6 goals and a hat
and
trick
three
in one of the
assists or
teams.
something like that. He had hat trick in one of the games. So he pulled kind of the LeBron James where coast through the regular season and then turn it up a notch in the playoffs. So that was really nice to see. Um, what'd you think about Kadri? He's suspended now, and it seems like we play better without him.
I didn't see the hit live, but after coming back, I didn't realize he had such a history. It was a pretty dirty
Yeah,
hit. I wasn't a fan of it.
yeah, no, it was a really bad hit, and even the Colorado announcers they couldn't defend it in any way. And I'm with you; I didn't know that he had such a history of being a dirty player. So, so be it. He's not a standout. He's a guy who plays second team center, second line center. So, not really concerned. And like I said, it seems like we played better without him. So, if he doesn't come back, I mean, it's 8 games or something like that he was suspended. So, if he doesn't come back, so be it. I don't think we'll be missing anything.
As long
Um,
as they can keep their goaltending up, they should be fine.
Yeah, and Grubauer has been fantastic. I mean, we're on attack so much that it's really easy for him because I mean we're out shooting him 2-1 every game, all game. So
He
I
does
mean the
make some good
last one it
saves.
was a close and it was 34-20. So not a whole lot of shots on goal for the opposing team.
No, they definitely make it easy with them with their offense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then if I look over, it looks like we'll be taking on the Golden Knights. They play tonight, and they're up 3-1 on the Wild. So that'll be a really big series. That's probably the two best teams in the Western Conference. So um, I would expect the winner of that one to be the representative of the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup. So I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean those two teams were neck and neck all the way to the end. It came down to pretty much the last game of the season to decide who got the home
Absolutely.
ice advantage. So
Yeah, it was
an easy series against them,
we
but
beat the
the Avs
Golden Knights and won our last 2 games to just barely sneak off with home ice. So it'll be a really interesting series. There's probably zero chance that the Wild come back and win. So we'll we'll be sure to keep an eye out. But yeah, it's gonna be the Wild um, winning maybe one more game and then losing to the Knights.
right.
Um, so on to the NBA though, where our other playoff team is in. We are not looking so hot. We got tip off here in a couple minutes. So after we film this, we'll go check that out. But thoughts on the game? I know what my thoughts are.
They didn't look crisp the whole time. I mean, they were giving Jokic an ability to score, so I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he can make plays no matter what, but they decided to take away his passing lanes in this last game. So he only had a couple assists in it, maybe one or two, and the rest of the team wasn't really keeping up. MPJ was playing well, but they're going to need somebody else to step up because outside of those two, they didn't really have anything going for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. It was really really bad as far as the rest of the team. Michael Porter Jr. I'm a huge fan of his. I actually thought that he looked lazy on defense. He's been playing really hard on defense recently, and I thought he looked really lazy on defense this last game. To your point with Jokic, 34.16 rebounds, one assist. So they definitely wanted him to be a scorer, and he was very efficient at it. He just, when he did pass the ball or find the shooter, they didn't make it. I saw a stat that said he was uh, the NBA, or sorry, the players for the Nuggets were 1 of 10 on passes from Nikola Jokic. So it's not that he wasn't finding guys who were open; and they just weren't hitting the shots. Um,
Right.
Porter, on the other hand, he was very dominant inside, but he was 1 for 10 from three. So I mean, that's so
Yeah,
12 of 21 was his stat line. You take away his 3 pointers, and he was 11 for 11. So
he started the game off hot too, so he started to cool down. And
yes, he was
that is
making some tough jumpers for sure. But he's got to hit
I
the
think he
three
was
ball.
getting manhandled by Carmelo a little when he had to cover him. So Carmelo came in and he just went on fire for a quick streak there in the second and kind of took over the game for a bit.
Yeah,
And that kind
Vince
of knocked
Carmelo.
it.
He never. I mean, what was your thoughts on booing Carmelo Anthony?
I mean, it seems like it's been a long enough time to where I wouldn't boo him anymore. I mean, I get that he forced his way out a while ago, but those were the first good years of Nuggets basketball since the early ABA days transitioning over. So, I mean, it sucked the way he left, but since he did leave that way, we got a team that actually competed for a few years instead of him just leaving in free agency the next year. So we got something out of it, even though he forced his way out. I wouldn't have booed him this time, but I don't know. He seems to feed on that kind of stuff, so it might have helped him too.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it helped him. I'm not a fan of it. Like you said, I've been open about how I think he was bad to the Denver Nuggets basketball name on his way out. Kind of ruined us as a free agent destination. But he was Denver Nuggets basketball in the early 2000s, in the mid 2000s. We were in the playoffs all 7 years that he played. Before that, we were the worst team in the league. That's why we had the third pick. And it had a history of top 10 picks and a history of never making the playoffs since I think the Mutombo series was the first time they made the playoffs. Like that was the last time in between. So that's a good 9 years. And then they won seven in a row. Now he didn't have the best playoff record, and he didn't always show up, but he did play. He played hard, whether you liked him or not, and his flaws of not playing defense or isolation ball. He put us on the map. Um, I got no disrespect for him. I think he should be remembered as one of the Nuggets greats. Um, but no, I don't want him to win. And yeah, I agree that you probably are feeding into to him being emotional and writing hot hand. Um, so I disagree with the Nuggets fans booing, but it is basketball fans and they paid their tickets, so do what you got to do. Um, who's got to step up for us if Porter Jr. and Jokic are going to be? They've been consistently good since Murray's gone down. I've mentioned to Nick before that I told you last year that Michael Porter Jr. was going to be the second best player on the Nuggets by the end of next year. Um, so I think both of those guys have solidified themselves as star caliber players. But who's got to be that guy to fill
Their
the
bench,
role of three
their
and
bench is
four?
terrible. I think they only had 20 points in this last game, and that was with Monty Morris having about 10 points. So they didn't really do anything. They're weak on guards right now due to injury. I mean, they lost Jamal Murray for the season, and Barton's not playing right now, and Dozier's hurt, so even though Dozier's not the greatest, it still gives you a body. So when you're playing a team that's guard heavy with CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard, you need somebody to body them up and make them work at least a little bit on the other end. So right now the guards aren't putting as much pressure on them, so it's just all offense for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got a rookie who didn't even play during the season, who actually looks like he's going to be really good, in Marcus Howard, um, playing 20 minutes in an NBA playoff basketball game. It's rough. As much as I don't like Will Barton, I mean, not having Dozier or Barton puts a lot of pressure on guys who aren't ready to step up. I think that Michael Malone needs to work on his rotation a little better. I didn't like the fact that Jokic was out in the fourth quarter until 6 minutes left. I mean, I hate the rotation when JaMychal Green and Paul Millsap are on the floor at the same time. Never seems to work. But it doesn't seem like his rotation was very good. And yeah, like he's working with limited pieces, but Jokic has got to play 40 minutes. It's the playoffs. Porter's got to play 40 minutes. Gordon's probably got to play 35 minutes. I mean, Aaron Gordon only played 28 minutes.
Yeah, his rotation felt more like a regular season game
Yeah,
where you're playing.
let's keep our legs fresh for the next game sort of mentality. We need to play. We need to be ready to play next game. It was really weird.
Yeah, they need to. It's hard to say because they are playing shorthanded. Obviously, if you throw Jamal Murray onto the team, they're going to be much different. So if you have that other guy that could come in and score, and you have Jokic, Porter Jr., and then you bring in Jamal Murray, it's going to put that much more pressure on the team. But without that legitimate, consistent third scoring option who can take over when Jokic is off the court, or so when you have your suboptimal team on the court, you have somebody who can still carry it, and you could split their rest time between at least having one or two of them on the court at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how they do tonight. Should be starting here soon. Off to playoffs and on to a team that's not going to make the playoffs. This is a team that me and Nick have been talking about, even though we don't want to talk about it, is the Colorado Rockies, who are actually on a winning streak.
Yeah, they put off a nice little series win against the Diamondbacks, and
Not
I think
just the series win, they swept them.
they swept them. Yeah, they swept them, and I think they won again today
Yep.
against the Mets. They're on a
And
four-game win.
you know what is crazy is they won on the road today. They went into New York and won. Do you know what, off the top of your head, do you know what the Rockies record is?
I know it's like 3 and whatever they've played. They have a very good record at home, actually. If they
Yeah,
even were remotely decent on the road, they would be top 10 team. So yeah, I think it's on their second or third win.
3-17. So they are 19-29 total. So 16-12. They're 16-12. If they just played 400, not even 500 ball on the road, they would be in the playoff conversation. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how they're so bad this year, but I mean, in baseball, it just seems like hitters are really struggling, and being on the road for the Rockies, it probably
Yeah.
makes it even worse because they've always struggled to move to where the ball's going to drop an extra 2 or 3 inches on a breaking ball. So
Yeah.
whatever it
And
is, it seems like all of baseball struggling to hit this year, and it makes it worse for the Rockies when they hit the road.
well, geez, there's been like 6 no hitters or 7 no hitters in the league this year.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah.
pretty crazy. The Rockies have 0 or 1 no hitter in the history of their team. I don't foresee us throwing one this year with our starters, but today Gombar, he threw solid. He had a one hitter, I think, through 5 innings. Let's see what he had. He had 8 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, and yeah, he had like a one hitter going through the 5th inning. So he threw really well. What's your thoughts on the state of the Rockies? What do you think they should do? I know me and Nick have talked about it a lot. We think that they need to blow it up, trade Story, trade Gray, trade Blackman, trade whoever you can
I
get.
feel like they need to blow it up, but seeing how they blew it up with Arenado, I feel like we wouldn't be any better even 5 years from now once their picks come in because you're paying people to take their best players
Yeah.
without getting anything in return. So it seems like every time we trade away a top player for prospects, that other team usually gets the better deal. I mean, if you go back to Tulo ended up not being very good after he moved on, but
No, I mean, you
they
could say
traded
that we
him.
won that trade just because we got rid of the contract. But on the other hand, we took on Jose Reyes' contract and bought him out. So nobody won that trade. Matt Holiday trade, you could almost say was a wash because we got Carlos Gonzalez out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get anybody else. And then this one is to be determined. But
The
we're
fact that they
paying
paid
Nolan
him,
Arenado to play for the Cardinals right now. He's on pace to hitting a 291, 35 home runs, and 113 RBIs. So I don't think not hitting in the thin air is affecting him all that much, just like I didn't think it would. I mean, the guy is one of the best hitters in baseball. It doesn't matter if he's hitting in Coors Field or not. But we didn't get anybody for him. And we don't draft good. So even if we did get somebody for him, our first round picks don't ever pan out. So
and then when they do have show some promise, they just let him go in free agency like this
yeah,
last year.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a small market team that can't pay their free agents top dollar as long as they continue to develop, which we don't do. If we can continue to develop and continue to turn out players who are going to come through and you have them for 7 years under team friendly contracts, and then let them go, because usually the big contracts hurt you anyways. There's not a big enough difference between somebody who is in their rookie ball and somebody who's getting paid 200 million. There are the all-stars who deserve 200 million, but there are too many veterans who make 12 million a year who are batting 230 for their career. So I'm okay with developing as long as we develop.
Yeah, I would say their one bright spot this year has been John Gray having his every
Mm-hmm.
other good year. So he's actually been surprisingly good this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I joked about it at the beginning of the season, and I called it. I said John Gray throws really well every other year, and this is his other year, so we should be able to see a good season from him.
What's crazy about him too is he's pitching well at home and he's struggling on the road. I think his ERA is under 2.5 at home, and it's pretty high on the road. So
Yeah,
he's
that's not something you see in Colorado. We've had pitchers who have been lights out on the road and not so hot at home, so they just look average. But you don't really see um, players do it that way. Looking at his splits, he's got 5 quality starts and 10 starts, 4-1 at home with a 2.36 ERA, 0-3 on the road with a 6.89 ERA. And in his 3 games, he's only pitched 15 innings, so he's not making it very far into the games. And opponent batting average is 368. That's insane.
yeah.
So yeah, I think we need to trade John Gray by midseason. He's 29 years old, doesn't fit what we're going to be doing. I don't know what his contract situation looks like, but if we can ship him off to a contender like the Cardinals or the Yankees or somebody, then we should try to pick up a couple of top 100 prospects for him.
Right. They're not going to be doing anything in the near future, which sucks because a few years ago I thought they had a solid few years ahead of them because they had a young core of pitchers that were looking good.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And then they had Arenado and Story and DJ LeMahieu. And I was thinking they're going to be good for at least 4 years or so while those guys were going through, but it
Yeah,
disappeared
not so
quickly.
much. It was, you had Freeman, Marquez, who looked like 2 potential future Cy Young Award winners. Marquez is still good. Freeland hasn't been anywhere close to above average in the last 2 years. And this year he's hurt, so that one stings. But yeah, you're right. We had the best third baseman in baseball and a top 5 shortstop in baseball. We had a top 5 second baseman, and we didn't do anything. We had Blackman, who at the time was one of the best leadoff hitters in the game. So your 1 through 4 was maybe one of the best 1 through 4s, and then your 5 through 8 was really bad. And they could never. And it goes back to developing talent. Brendan Rodgers never came along. Ryan McMahon is finally coming along, but he's like 27 or 28 years old now, and it's his first year contributing at the major league level. So, yeah, it really was promising a few years ago, and now it looks like if we do everything right, we should be able to compete in 5 to 6 years, and that's if we do everything right. Which
I don't think it's going to happen under current ownership, but
no, so
we'll see.
We'll see how that goes. I don't have much faith in them. We'll see if they can prove me wrong and go on from there. OTAs started with the Denver Broncos. Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater competition. Aaron Rodgers trade mumbling still there. What's your thoughts on the quarterback situation?
I mean, it would be great to see Aaron Rodgers come in for me because I think they are just a quarterback away from really competing. They have a lot of young talent on offense, and they have a strong defense with Von Miller coming back.
Absolutely.
They just got Sertain Jr., so they really strengthen up their defensive back. So I think their
Defense
defense is
is,
going to
yeah.
be top 5, at least top 10. It's
If
going to
the
be driven by
defense
the
is
offense.
not top 5, I would be surprised. Just because, I mean, you have the best safety, or one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in the game, in Justin Simmons. You have all-pro cornerback. You have a very highly regarded free agent cornerback. You have the best cornerback to come out of the draft, and then you have Callahan, who is like a jack of all trades. He play inside, outside, and then Kareem Jackson, who was also playing inside the box, outside the box. The only spots that might be an issue is interior defensive line if we can't stuff the run and covering the tight end like always. But I think we should be at least top 5 defense.
If they're
Now,
not, it's going to be the offense that causes it.
and we don't really have any holes on offense except for quarterback. You have Cortland Sutton coming back, and if he is Cortland Sutton, he is a top 15 receiver in the NFL. You have Jerry Jeudy, who I've already mentioned had drop problems, but so do a lot of rookies, and he is way too talented, and he doesn't have a history of drops, so I'm not worried about that. KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant. You got weapons across the board. The offensive line is well above average, to actually pretty good. And then, yeah, so who wins the starting quarterback job? I hope Drew Lock, because
I hope Drew Lock can prove
took
a leap year
forward. I think Aaron Rodgers would be fantastic. The trade I saw was Patrick Surtain, first round pick next year, first round pick the year after, and Drew Lock. It seems like a king's ransom for a guy who's 38 years old, 3 first round picks, but I think it's worth it.
I mean, the Broncos don't always hit on their first round draft picks anyways. So if you can get a couple Super Bowl or get a Super Bowl and compete for the next 3 or 4 years, even 2 or 3,
absolutely,
in my mind, it would be worth it because
Shane Ray never contributed. Sylvester Williams was okay role player that could have been filled in as a free agent. Who's other first round picks in the past? They did all right with Bradley Chubb. They did. Who was their pick? I would have said Bowles, but he turned out to be fantastic last year, and even prior to that, he was starting to get better. Quarterback Paxton Lynch. So you're right. First round draft pick doesn't mean anything if you don't hit the draft pick. So at least you know what you're going to get with Aaron Rodgers.
There's talent in all the rounds. So you can still build a competent team without first round draft picks, especially when you're going to have the free agents draw of people wanting to come to play with Aaron Rodgers, knowing they are an immediate Super Bowl contender. So you can fill some of those short term gaps. and then you'll get through the next couple of years, and then you may have a year or two after Aaron Rodgers where it might hurt a little, but if you're actually competing right now, taking that jump is worth it in my mind.
Well, and then really those first round picks, other than Surtain, because he was the number 9 pick, are probably going to be 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, something somewhere around there. So I just pulled up first round draft picks. So the last 3, depending on how Judy and Fant develop, but I think they will develop, have been, our last 4 have been pretty good. Garrett Bowles, Chubbs, Fant, and Judy. But before that, we had Paxton Lynch, Shane Ray, Bradley Roby, and Sylvester Williams. And I don't think anybody would say that those were home run first picks. Bradley
Right.
Roby was okay for us, but he never got past that nickel. He was always the 3rd best quarterback or cornerback. And then, you go even further. If I go up to 2007, you got Jarvis Moss, terrible. Ryan Clady was really good. No Sean Moreno, not very good. Robert Ayers, terrible. Demarius Thomas was good. Tim Tebow was not good. And Von Miller was great. So it's like 50-50. So you're not necessarily losing out by sending draft picks.
When you look at some of their second, third, fourth, and later round draft picks, they picked up a lot of talent that were bigger contributors to their team than some of those guys you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Like you had 3rd round Justin Simmons, you had 5th round Connor McGovern, so he's starting for their offensive
Danny
line.
Trevathan, big Malik Jackson. You had a lot of late picks that built our team, not first round picks. And it's funny, as I'm looking at all of these first round picks, even going back to 2000, Deltha O'Neal, he was pretty good. Willie Middlebrooks was terrible. Ashley Lilly was terrible. George Foster was terrible. DJ Williams was good. Jay Cutler, not very good. Jarvis Moss, not very good. So, I mean, like, I would say our success rate on having not just a good player, but like somebody who contributed like you would expect a first rounder pick would be like 30%. So it's not anything that would be valuable in my opinion.
Yeah,
As far as positional battles, we're probably having a pretty big battle at wide receiver because we have 4 that I think can play for most teams. Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, and Jerry Jeudy are going to be battling for that number 2, number 3. And as good as I think Jeudy and Hamler can be, Patrick was super reliable last year. No drops and 70 something catches. Can the 2 young guys be good enough or big enough improvement that we don't need Patrick?
it's going to be hard for them to carve out minutes. Like you said, he was just a big target that always seemed to make big plays when they needed him. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the younger receivers would either struggle to stay healthy or struggle with drops, struggle with getting open, which are things that a young receiver struggles with. But you have a guy that just came in, you had the injury to Sutton, and he just
Yeah.
stepped up. And
It's like it's not a sexy pick. Patrick, his ceiling's not very high, but his floor is pretty high. So you're not going to get terrible. You're going to get pretty good, but you're also not going to get elite ever. So it's like you hope that the young guys, because their ceiling is much higher than Patrick's, but their floor is much lower. So you hope that they can overtake him, but at the same time, if they don't, Patrick's plenty good enough to be a second receiver. That's about it. Do you got any other things that you want to add about the Broncos?
I mean, looking forward to it this year. They have a good roster all over. So as long as they can get some competent play, I mean, you're in a tough division where they're the worst quarterback of the other 3 teams is David Carr. So, or Derek Carr, excuse me.
Yeah.
So
Valid point. I mean, Herbert's going to be
if he just improves slightly
fantastic for the next 10 years. Mahomes is going to be beyond fantastic for the next 10 years. So looks like we're trying to beat him with defense, which is not going to work. We also need offense. So hopefully we can get that taken care of. But until then, It was wonderful having you on as a guest spot. We'll have to do this again.
Yep,
Everybody else, take care, and we'll see you next week.